many people think you just jump in the car and go start looking at houses all over the place. We approach it from a much more knowledge-based and procedural, like, let's be smart about this. Let's talk about what you're looking for before we go start on a wild goose chase of what we think we might be looking for. One of the things we start with is just the map of the city. When people come to Cleveland and they're like, we want a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and you start asking them questions like, do you want an older home? Do you want a newer home? And most buyers will say both, and they'll say they want a big yard with a fence because they have a dog, but they want low maintenance, where it's like, well, a big yard will require maintenance. So if you had to sort of tournament style and say, is it one or the other? Is low maintenance more important to you than a big yard? So when Cleveland was first built, you basically had the city center, and you had then if you just drew the rings going east or west, you had 1900s built, and then you go to the Heights is 1920s, and then the neighborhoods just started pushing east. Part of that conversation of when they say, we want a newer house, right off the bat, you're kind of limiting yourself in Cleveland. We want a new house in Shaker. Those are conflicting because 95% of the housing stock in Shaker is going to be older than 1950s built. However, there is some newer construction. We would say, well, do you want a townhouse? You could live in a townhouse in Shaker, and helping them to understand that. We actually have photos we go through together and say, how do you like this living room? This is the 1950s. It's lower ceilings. You're going to have a big slider out to the backyard. Maybe you're going to have a wider fireplace. Might not have wood floors. You might have carpeting because they stopped putting wood floors in. It became a cost thing. So you start looking at the 60s and the 70s. You don't have hardwood floors. You like carpeting in bedrooms. And you sort of help them walk through the age of the house, not just the age, but also what comes with that. Then to start saying, well, if you want brand new, we may have to go out to the burbs. Like, you just look at the land. Cuyahoga County is a well-developed county. It's built up. Like, there's not a lot of new construction. So what happens in the 2000s when the building kind of booms, sort of reinvigorated, was Ryan Homes and Pulte and all the new home builders, they bought farms. Twinsburg, parts of Aurora, parts of Bainbridge, South Russell, like, that's just where the land was. So that's where, if they say, I want a house that's 20 years or less, we have to draw a big circle around the secondary or the tertiary suburb. And then it's like, well, then do you want a 45-minute drive to work if you work in the city? We're going to find you a house, right? But let's start first with talking through this. Is a 45-minute drive acceptable? If it's not, then maybe we need to look at renovated houses in the Heights. That maybe you don't get the 20-year-old house. Maybe you look at an older home, but we know, like, it's got to be in super good shape. It's got to really be renovated. It's fun to look at houses. It's educational, but it's part of controlling the process and saving people time. So that's a big part of our process, is really understanding what they want, why they want it, where they want to be. And if you don't do that, what happens is they may come to town, they may see a house. Oh, this is a pretty kitchen. This is nice. They write the offer, and then they have the inspection, and then suddenly they're like, they didn't even really understand what an old house even meant. And they just feel completely fear-based. They're afraid, which is natural. They're afraid of, like, tuck pointing and the chimney cap and the drain lines and all this stuff that the inspector is saying, like, well, that's what it takes to own and run an old house. Our job is about managing expectations. It's about explaining it from start to finish and asking the right questions so that they can have some self-reflection, give some thought to it. And again, we're back to making informed decisions. We want an educated, informed client.